January 21st, 1861. Jefferson Davis resigns his seat as U.S. Senator. Unlike most racist senators today, he does not become Attorney General. Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And we have a great show for you. Our guest is one of Denver's most exciting comics. Also a fantastic artist. Megan DePonso is here.
Thank you. Hey, guys.
Thank you for being here.
Awesome.
So, if you're new to the show, let me get you caught up on this nonsense that we do. Each episode, we take a topic from history. One person presents the official version of events, and another person comes up with the alternate history, and the winner gets to become the truth going forward.
Yeah.
So that was always bad.
And also, there's a lot of stuff about butts, typically.
Sure.
It's mostly butt stuff, actually.
I feel like that applies to most areas of life, really, when you break them down enough.
Yeah, that was
Like,
a slice of the Trivial Pursuit pie, right? But
Butts,
that was
yeah.
definitely a category.
Yeah, it's like arts and entertainment.
Yeah, I think it was actually 2 slices, one for each.
One for each cheek.
We're already there, guys. We're doing it. Well, listeners, we're in the middle of our discussion of Russian history. If you listen to our last episode, Sophia Alexeyevna with Rachel Weeks, then you'll know that the alternate history won out, which was kind of a Ferris Bueller thing in the end.
There was like telepathic powers that may or may not have existed.
Or men just thought women had telepathic powers.
She had a mask of Frankenstein, the doctor, not the monster.
Yes. And the Moscow...
Those are hard to find.
Yeah.
And of course, the government building in Moscow is called the Kremlin.
Well, it's run by a gremlin who lives
yes.
inside of it.
Yes, of course.
He went to see the Moscow Gremlin, which is, I think, a real gremlin inside the Kremlin.
I love that how enchanted you were with that part of the history.
Yeah.
Was
Which
my
was an
favorite.
accident you made?
Almost, basically.
Yeah.
It was an accident that became a conscious choice.
Okay.
But this week, we are moving on fairly chronologically to discuss Peter the Great.
Woo.
Yeah.
So, Megan, you're doing the alternate history.
Yep.
Zach, you're doing the true.
Yes.
So, Zach, if you're ready,
Sure.
take it away.
So Peter was born to Tsar Alexis in 1672. He was one of the few children he had that were not like misshapen and slow.
Misshapen.
Such a sick family. Such a sickly family.
It's just such a weird choice of words, also. Like misshapen. It's
Yeah, most of them
They're
weren't so
organs.
high.
freakish, I believe.
Yeah, this one turned out okay.
Sometimes you go for a football team. Other times you get a freak show, you know?
So
Look, C+ is still passing, basically.
as a result, they decided to take the time to educate this one.
When you say it like that, it sounds cruel.
What a nice investment.
This is an accurate account of what occurred.
This one's not going to die. We should make this one smart.
So Alexis dies when he's 4 years old. His half-brother Fyodor takes over. F-E-O-D-O-R?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just confused. Alexis died when Peter was 4 years old.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Alexis, his father, did not die when he was 4 years old. Okay.
No, that would be weird.
Yeah.
Huh. That'd be a crazy wrinkle.
Russia.
No, his brother takes over. Turns out his brother is not one of the good ones, and he dies pretty soon too. And there's a lot of dispute after this about whether Ivan or Peter should take over, because Ivan is also not great. Ultimately, they become co-czars, and their mother kind of runs as regent for them, but Sophia Alexeyevna, whatever her name
Close
was,
enough.
I thought she was sister.
she is. She's a half-sister.
Okay.
She kind of manages to use political string pulling to actually make it so she herself is the one ruling kind of as regent in place of Ivan and Peter.
Yeah, she's like puppeteering them, basically.
Yeah. She
It's like
coach-
that NSYNC video.
She has Peter talk to like foreign dignitaries, but she like tells him what to say, like a Cyrano de Bergerac situation.
Yeah, she's just like sitting behind them on the thrones, like whispering in their ears.
Yeah, I feel like the foreign
it's all-
dignitaries probably heard her being like, Peter, ask him about trade.
Or she
whisker
and
of
he
a
just
woman.
like says, Peter, ask them about trade. Or like she starts ordering something in a restaurant and he repeats that to them.
Yeah, or maybe it was a situation where she and the foreign dignitary were mad at each other and they talked to each other through Peter because they were like having a fight.
Like the surrogate in Arrested Development.
Anyways, for a long time he didn't really mind her taking over. He like played with his toys and went sailing and had fake wars with his little soldiers, which would be good practice as it turns out.
He did
For the
all
real wars, they killed a bunch of real people.
Yes.
It's like Ender's Game.
Sophia actually, for political reasons, tries to have actually successfully arranges a marriage between him and a woman named Eudoxia
That's how you pronounce it.
Lupankina.
That's not authoritative.
Eudoxia. I like it.
Eudosha? Whatever.
Something like that. Anyways, the marriage fails, and years later, he forces her into a convent, which would turn into one of his signature moves.
Yeah, he loved
that's
putting
his-
ladies in convents. That's like his go-to.
That's his finishing move.
Yeah.
He wanted God on his side. He's like, go rally for me in a convent.
So at this point, Peter goes to Chicago for 6 months. All the while having a great time with his friend's stolen Ferrari, while
Alternate history.
incidentally gaining a faction who would support him against Sophia. Kind of by accident. People just kind of like him. They write, save Peter on the water tower,
Thank you.
etc.
Yeah, was he also
And-
the sausage king of Russia?
Yes. Yeah, he was the sausage king of Russia. And when he comes back home, Sophia is overthrown in relative short order, and he returns to being Khazars with his brother. Their mom dies, and his brother dies within the next 2 or 3 years, and Peter is the sole ruler of Russia at that point, pretty much, by 1696.
Yeah, death was like the best way of promotion back then. It was the guarantee.
I mean, in a monarchy, it's really your only hope.
Now, this part, they specifically mentioned that Peter was crazy tall. He was 6'8".
Yeah, that's a historical record.
He had tiny hands and feet. He had narrow shoulders, a small head, and facial tics.
Hot
Yeah.
A.
Possibly epilepsy caused the facial tics.
And he was the
So-
good one.
This one was the one that was like the most promising. Yeah.
Jesus, what do the fucking failures look like?
Scraping the bottom of the gene pool there.
I'm not saying incest, but
Yeah. I'm saying incest.
correlation and causation don't necessarily match up, but it does point pretty heavily at a certain conclusion.
I mean, like, I like to imagine that the reject children looked like handsome by today's standards.
But they were just wrong inside.
Well, no, that they were just like modern day like 9s, but 17th century Russia 4s, basically.
Yeah, 'cause they weren't pointy and creepy
Yeah,
looking.
right.
Oh
They
god,
did-
they have symmetry on their face, and oh, that's gross.
I thought
They
you were-
didn't look like alcoholic vampires, basically.
I thought you were suggesting an inverse relationship between looks and like basically intelligence.
Oh no. Yeah, that would be
That's real.
that'd be a weird theory to promulgate on the podcast.
Well, it's the Beauty and the Beast theory, I suppose. Except Belle doesn't really fall into that, does she?
No.
Anyways, he modernizes Russia, including he has this big long campaign to turn them into a naval power, and to that end, actually attempts to take the Black Sea from the Ottomans, which he, after some strife, manages to succeed at and establishes the first Russian naval base. He also, around this time, travels Europe incognito to try and get support against the Ottomans from like other Europeans. And,
disguised as what?
Well, the problem is he is a very distinct looking person, and everybody of importance like knows who he is.
How do people come to know that back then? Like they're shipping portraits and paintings like around. They're like sending them,
I don't
putting.
know, yeah.
Who's the giant with the doll hands? Oh yeah, I've
Oh,
heard
that
about
guy.
this.
All
I've
right.
heard about this dude.
Yeah, he runs Russia.
Have you
a major
seen this
nation.
man? It's a giant oil painting.
Yeah, he's basically got a huge torso and everything else is tiny. I don't know about everything else, but anything that's visible.
tiny hands.
I'd like to imagine you're talking about his dick, basically.
Well, yeah, I don't know. There was no
He
account.
sounds like he has a big nose. He's got a big nose, right?
I mean, this is
Possibly.
all metaphor, right? Because you couldn't say penis back then, so you had to say like it's got a real tiny hands.
For various political reasons, he doesn't really garner much support from the Europeans. But he learns about docks. He learns about shipbuilding. He helps build a ship, which is called the Peter and Paul. I guess Mary added an add-on later on at some point. But
God
Who
damn
is
it.
Paul?
I don't know who Paul was.
That's his buddy.
I guess I assume it was the person. It was like an East India.
Well, he did get
dock,
bored of his wife, so maybe Paul was a little
and I think
A little.
his buddy, his boat buddy. You know,
Yeah.
You get awful lonely building a ship.
I assume Paul was his boat building mentor.
Yes, BBM.
This is weird, and I'm just going to repeat
This
it.
is weird.
Because I
Okay.
don't know what this means, but it claimed that Frederick Reich, something like that, helped him learn to, this is a direct quote, I didn't do additional research, draw teeth and catch butterflies.
I do that
That-
every weekend.
Yeah.
I know.
Like
So,
Draw
like
teeth.
pull teeth,
Like,
or like
take 'em
draw
all-
teeth, like with a pencil.
I don't.
That's a very specific art class.
The intellectual
So he's a
curiosity.
dentist who's into butterflies, or he's an artist who's into. I'm going with dentist.
Builds boats into lepidology.
Yeah. There's also an account that the mayor of Amsterdam was forced to sit with the exact quote. This guy Lefort was his main military advisor. Was quote forced to sit between Lefort and the Tsar and drink at his farewell ceremony. I don't know what it means by he was
He had
forced
to buy
do this.
friendships. You will be by me.
But the Streltsky rebellion, which was kind of Sophia's doing in an attempt to return to power, draws him home. He quashes it. The official Russian forces lose one man. He tortures, kills, and hangs around the town 1,200 of the rebellion members.
That's Russia.
And Sophia, guess what, is forced into a convent.
Hell yeah. That's his,
Air horn, just like that.
that's just what he does.
You do you,
That's
Peter.
where women belong.
Commentators at the sign say,
Incredibly regressive,
yeah,
incredibly regressive stance.
just imagining political
They're safe
commentators
there.
at the time saying "Boom goes the dynamite" when he does signature Peter the Great.
Dynamite hasn't been invented yet, but boom.
Anyways, a few of the things he did from that point are he went about ending arranged marriages because he thought they created strife and domestic abuse.
Because
Which
girls are gross. That's what he thinks.
maybe it's
Should
that.
just be a man in his boat and maybe his friend Paul. That's all. That's what the foundation of society.
He did have his second wife officially titled the Empress of Russia, so I guess he liked her all right. She took over for him. She took over after he died, as a matter of fact.
We'll be talking about her next episode.
He changed New Year's from September the 1st to January the 1st and ended the Russian calendar, which at that time was on 7,207, went to the Julian, the Julian calendar, which was on 1,700 at the time. And then he initiated this war with Sweden. He also founded St. Petersburg at this time. Then he initiated this long war with Sweden to take the Baltic Sea and try to set up another naval base. Basically, kind of initially failing, and Sweden comes back and tries to invade Moscow, but he crushes that shit.
Always a good idea
Yeah.
to try to invade Russia.
Yeah.
It works out for
a
everyone.
while,
Yeah.
King Charles XII of Sweden is exiled, but eventually this war kind of comes and goes a little bit for the next couple decades, and there's no chance at peace, even though Russia's kicking their ass, until Charles dies in battle in 1718, at which point he gives them back Finland in exchange for some other lands nearer Russia. But that's how that war ended much later on. He also did a lot to end the Boyar Duma, which was kind of like a Russian council, but they were not totally with him during the political strifes earlier in his life. So he kind of disbanded them for a Senate of 10, which became the new norm.
Is it really a Senate if it's 10
10
people?
people?
I do.
It's a club.
Yeah, that's
a
like-
club. That's a bunch of guys on a boat.
They were working. They were
Yeah, it's Peter and 9 Pauls. He had a Paul fetish at this point.
He like reformed the intelligence and justice and finance and a bunch of other departments in Russia to give them more checks and balances instead of one kind of supreme person overseeing that department, because he didn't trust anybody enough to put them in those positions.
Yeah. It's sort of like a more European
Yeah.
style of government.
And another way he
Using
kind of
that.
ended the reign of the Boyars was to change things from basically a lineage-based system to a meritocracy, which kind of stayed in place until 1917 when something else happened.
When something else happened.
It was a big party.
Just leaving that open-ended.
They let all the convents open and the women fled out.
And he mandated education for all noble children, so the bad ones got education too.
Sick kids got to learn too.
Like, just in parentheses, even the Yuggos, basically. That's...
And he took some lands from Prussia, Persia, which was declining at the time, though they did eventually get them back. And as a non-religious person, he saw the church as a threat to his sovereign, like his control of Russia. And when the Patriarch of Moscow died, he left the seat vacant until he literally abolished the Patriarchy. So...
Yeah, yeah, the government aren't running the church.
I mean, that's a bold
that's-
statement for a man who literally put a bunch of people in convents.
Yeah, I mean,
That's like...
in this constance, in a technical sense, it's
in a very technical sense.
in a broader sense, okay, yes, the patriarchy still existed.
It's like, you know what? The patriarchy hurts men, too. Specifically this
the beginning of
patriarchy.
men's right activists,
This one thing
right?
that refers to itself as the patriarchy.
Like this other larger patriarchy doing great for me, Peter the Great.
So near the end of his life, he started to have these urinary issues. Doctors at one point operated on him and unblocked, this is what they said, 4 pounds of blocked urine. When you are
Where-
counting your urine in pounds.
Where do you put that? He's a tall, skinny guy. What is he?
Don't
Just
know. I guess he developed a gut or something.
okay.
It's just, sorry, I got a bit of a pee.
This is a
going
beer
on.
gut. This is. I haven't broke the seal yet.
Oh, God. I'm just saving it up because it's going to feel so good when I do.
But shortly after, the claim is, ran, while on some kind of envoy, ran into a river to save a Russian soldier he saw was drowning,
Tall.
which in turn, the coldness on the water reignited his urinary issues. Now, there is one source for this, so a lot of people think it might be bullshit.
Sounds medically accurate to me.
Yeah,
that
I think-
cold water does it gets your blood. It gets it going.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some people think that maybe people who were loyal to him didn't like the line that their emperor was killed by pee issues, and they needed to be like, but he was a hero.
It diminishes his
So
majesty.
many politicians have been taken down by pee issue.
Anyways,
Richard Dixon,
this time those bladder issues,
Warren P. Harding.
those bladder issues got him.
So did.
There's a kind of apocryphal story,
And of course,
probably.
Calvin Doolittle, which was a different issue.
There's a story that is almost certainly false. That as he was dying, he wrote the words "leave all to," and then died.
Where did he write it? On
know.
what? The water?
I suppose he had
Bathroom
parchment.
stall. He was
had
trying.
smoke
and
in
his
the air.
dick burst, and that's how.
Anyways, his wife Catherine took over after his death for a few years, and the next 3 rulers of Russia were actually his children. His son from his first arranged marriage, and then 2 of his daughters.
Were they good children or were they sickly children?
I think. Well, the son died pretty fast after gaining the throne.
Yeah. It runs in the family, you know?
Yeah, death runs in the family.
Catherine, or his first daughter,
Die far from the tree. Sorry.
I think Anna ruled for a little while, not super long, and then Elizabeth of Russia, I think, was in charge for quite a long time. So I guess she came out all right.
One good kid every time. You get one. You got to
Yeah.
keep popping them out.
Zach, thank you. Megan,
Yeah.
you ready with the alternate history?
I am. I personally love Russian history. It's just so whimsical. It's like a fairy tale.
4 pounds of pee.
Russian fairy tales are just pictures of dead kids. That's all it is.
When you say like a fairy tale, you mean like the Hans Christian Andersen original versions?
Yeah, pretty much like
Where
the
people
original fairy tale.
Dance in molten hot shoes until they die.
That's what we should be reading our children before they go to bed at night now. That just makes more sense. All right. Peter the Great, Tsar of Russia, aka the guy that was like, let's get with it. He wanted to change things. He wanted to do cool shit. He was born June 9th, 1672, Gemini. His dad died when he was 4, and he had a couple sick brothers and a sister, so he knew that he'd get to rule someday. So he did what most rich kids with easy futures do. He went backpacking in Europe. He spent his Rumspringa in England.
Wait, is he Amish, or is that just a turn of phrase?
I'd like to think that all Russians are Amish.
I guess before the invention of technology, everyone was
Everyone
Amish.
was kind of Amish, so I just picture anytime you get to go away, it's Rumspringa. He gave the King of England a painting of himself, and he autographed it, and he said, "Hold on to that, King. It's going to be worth something someday." Then he went.
You know that hot new czar you've been looking for? You're looking at him.
Oh man, he went back to Russia to shake things up. At 17, he was married to Eudoxia. I'm going with that one. He got bored of her because girls are lame, and he decided in Europe that wearing tights is cool. So you decide what you want.
Yeah. I do want to say, I forgot to mention this, but true history, he wanted to adopt the French manner of dress. So he literally put a tax on long robes and long beards.
He had a beard tax.
Beard tax.
And he had a
100%.
lot of beards. He removed his sister Sophia from power and sent her to a convent where he sent his wife so they could braid each other's hair all day and get good with God for him.
Yeah. And we should note that also sometime before this, probably during his Rumspringa or his backpacking days, he must have gone to Chicago for 6 months.
Yeah.
He definitely was in Chicago.
I mean, backpacking through Europe, you got to stop in Chicago. I think
6
that's-
months, piss off a principal, get on back to Russia. That's what you got to do. So let's see. Peter and his sick brother Ivan joint ruled Russia until Ivan's death, and Peter had to stop sending women to nunneries and playing with boats and grow up, basically. He went back out traveling again, this time to shake hands and kiss babies of foreign lands for some allies. And if these countries wouldn't be his allies, he's like, well, at least I want to be told to my face, bro. So when he gets back to town, he ignores his ex-wife's texts, "Are you still up?" and acts like a teenager who spent like a summer.
So wait, is there? He has a cell phone.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Just checking.
Oh, yeah. Because, right. It was totally, it made sense when he had a Ferrari in the last
Yeah,
episode.
Ferrari's fine.
Yeah, that's no. I mean, I'm totally on board. I was just checking for consequences.
Yeah, I mean, they're cell phones. That's fine. Then they buried them all.
To trick us.
It's all been done before, guys. We're just on a loop. That's all I'm saying.
It's like the
So
Matrix.
sad. We're on a loop of Russian history.
Yeah, that is so close to being true.
Oh man. So when he came back, he kind of just acted like a teenager. Spent summers abroad in Europe, and he comes back calling all of his friends and family uncultured heathens. And he believes in Russia a lot. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and he believes in Russia a lot. Like I believe in Buffalo. Like we're going to get it out of these backward times. Maybe not in my lifetime, but sometime soon. And he was like, "Let's build an army. Let's build a navy. Let's build
Sabres."
schools." Yeah. Someday. He was gonna get a naval base, and someday Buffalo will get a championship. But all right. So he built schools, but Russia's pretty big, and it's pretty hard for people to travel. So he brought the education to his people, basically inventing the first online courses just via Ravens.
Yeah, Russian online universities never. That was the time of history when they were legitimate.
Yeah, it was. Well, the Raven School of Business nowadays is still considered one of the most prestigious online universities. They still offer study via Raven delivery. Notably, the only university.
Interesting. So at this time, did online mean messenger ravens?
It meant like the connected web. You know, it was like people being able to
Connected
talk to each
of
other.
messenger ravens.
And I just imagine the
They
messenger
didn't use their
raven
cell
land.
phones, though. They were like, no, we don't need to use our cell phones. We'll stick with these ravens.
If you're applying
Old
for
style
a,
communication where you
if you're
actually get
applying
to
for
get
a
in touch with them.
Raven-based online school, you probably don't have a cell phone.
Well,
Fuck, I hope I get into Raven U.
Raven School of Business is still the only university in the world that offers Raven study. So study via Raven delivery. So
It's the most hipster university possible.
yeah, it still has so many applicants every year. It's crazy. He did a lot for Russia.
Should I make an "It's So Raven" joke? I shouldn't. Should I?
I mean, I'm glad you
Should I
decided
say
against
that's
it.
the slogan of the school?
If only
I
you
mean,
could see.
I can edit that part out if you're still fucking deliberating about it.
I'll leave it to your jurisdiction.
Oh, Raven U,
I
go
mean-
fighting crows.
He wanted to bring tourism to Russia. I mean, that's so Raven fans were already there. So,
The show's gonna be great when it comes up.
yeah, they were getting really excited for it.
Yeah,
They had a lot of premonitions about it coming out. Oh, man.
they were crazy when Poe released the poem too. Good day for Raven U.
Yeah, that's the song of my
Any
alma
Raven
mater.
press is good press.
Oh, man. So, Peter the Great, he wanted to bring tourism to Russia. He wanted to get that sweet tourism money. So he focused his energy on building warm water parks, not ports. Some people mix that up. There weren't any heated water parks yet in the early 1700s, and he wanted to have the first, which I think makes sense. But before that tourist money could come in to like fuel the nation, he created localized taxations on nuts and hats and beards, like you said. And I've never met a Russian who didn't have a hat and nuts on their person at
Wait.
all times.
Like,
You have to do nuts is going to have an additional descriptor, like a bolt companion.
I think he was into like one type of nuts and he was against another type of
that's
nuts.
not specific at all. that didn't clarify anything.
It's for the listener to decide.
To be fair, there's a third type of nut that we haven't even discussed.
How do you know?
The edible nut. Yeah.
Two are technically edible.
You can eat anything if you have enough patience and you hate your organs enough. That's a fact. You can eat any kind of nut. Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't.
Oh God, I never thought about that.
So he's taxing nuts because that's what you do when you're a sane person. So it was a very successful tax. And then he started taxing chimney sweeps or chimneys or chimney sweep places of higher learning.
Yeah, Chimbley U.
Well, most of the schools he built, most of the courses delivered by Ravens were toward degree programs and specializations in chimney sweeping. It was an honored profession.
Fanciful.
Oh man, yeah, I feel like if you had money, you go to Britain for your chimney sweeping education.
You know, Raven U was really trying to like get the edge, and there was a lot of programs. It was basically like being a doctor back then.
Yeah, but Britain's got to be like the Harvard of chimney sweep universities.
True.
Russia was getting competitive. They really were trying. They're trying their way for the
You
belt.
do have a fair point that chimney sweeping is like the surgery of chimneys.
It is an honorable profession. The best and the brightest of Russian sick kids were going and becoming chimney sweeps.
Getting into so much debt to become chimney sweeps.
So yeah, they had to work long and hard, and they'd rack up tons of debt for chimney
Just like
sweep
doing their
education.
residencies.
Just like becoming a doctor, it pays a lot in the end, but you rack up a bunch of debt. And with a lot of the brightest minds in Russia being poor and tired and weak from years of their chimney sweep residencies, Peter the Great eventually repealed the chimney sweep education tax, and then even began to give out scholarships and education debt forgiveness, and eventually instituted free chimney sweep education for all those who could get into the top schools. And they became
This is a
very good.
progressive
Yeah,
education
he really
plan.
turned around socializing chimney sweeping.
You know,
I mean, we were talking about some of the cabinet confirmation
He's very
hearings earlier.
European. He wants to be very European. That's the point. So he would give a free education for chimney sweeps to the top schools. Whoever could get in became very competitive. And I swear to this day, I dare you to find a speck of dirt in any chimney in Russia. God, you could eat off of those chimneys there. It's really,
They often do, actually.
that is most of their plates.
After the bombings.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, so he gave free chimney sweep education out to all the land. So that was definitely part of his legacy. Let's see. He was the father of the Russian Navy, and the
Hot.
what?
I don't know what that
Don't
Are you into
like to
fathers or
both.
navies? I don't know.
you like little sailor outfits? Is that your thing?
I mean, we're learning more about me than about Peter the Great.
Starting to
Let's
sound a lot
move
like
on.
Peter. All
I'm
right.
going to edit this part out.
He's the father of the Navy, Russian Navy, and the Russian Navy needed a flag. Russia didn't have a flag at the time, so he hosted a competition where the citizens sent in their own designs for the Russian flag. It works really well. It's worked in a lot of small towns in the United States, so it obviously worked for them.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of them just said Spliff Life 420.
Most of them were just marijuana, frogs, and stars. That's just part of the history. Eventually, someone drew a really nice boat with a sword sticking out of the front of it, and that's the national flag of Russia today. Except it's been the sword's been replaced by a lightsaber. So,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right. Once the movies came out.
well, that was again. They have a lot of raven premonitions, so they knew they were trying to get ahead of the game. Actually, that flag
It's
is
part of the space race, I think, if I remember right.
It's just like their idea of getting ahead of the game is having Star Wars references in their nationals.
Yeah, fuck
Not
you,
even,
America.
You can't even make money off of that.
You got to the moon. We invented the lightsaber on a
Well,
flag.
we didn't invent it. We just sort of drew it.
We drew a lightsaber.
We no longer have president, we have Grand Moff.
Russian accents.
Oh man, I wish Peter the Great brought Star Wars to Russia. That would have been a good one. So basically, he was out gentrifying Russia. There's artisanal cupcake shops and vegan doggy daycare centers on every corner by 1710. And the Russian youth complained, saying that Russia was beat. It had lost its edge because if you guys know much about Russian history after Peter, it's pretty boring and very utopian. And living like that just breeds wussies and khakis.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess he pretty much just kept.
Every child got a survival trophy, basically.
That's a Russian fairy tale. That's beautiful. Yeah, so he died at age 52 in the cold waters of the Gulf of Finland, where the heated water parks hadn't existed yet. He didn't get to build them, so he died before his dream was done in the cold waters of the Gulf of
Those
Finland.
frustrated ambitions of the first heated water park.
The first water park tycoon.
Little did
There-
he know
there were a
that
lot of
those-
water parks.
Was he scouting for a water park when he drowned? Or,
I mean,
working
he
on
might have been
one?
out. Yeah, he might have been on construction. I think he had built a couple of water parks. He just couldn't get the heated
Isn't it-
technology.
Going
done.
down a test line and he got decapitated.
Isn't it ironic that he literally choked on his greatest ambition?
His
What?
Well, water chokes you and it suffocates. Well, you know.
But did he... Let's move on.
If he was trying to make the water park,
But did he literally choke on it?
yeah, you choke on water when you drown, right? That's
Oh,
kinda-
he drowned.
that's
Okay.
basically what drowning is.
Okay, yeah, no, okay.
He
I see
choked
that, I
on
see
Paul.
It used to be called
and-
water choking.
that. It used to be called water choking. Megan, thank you.
Yes.
The role of judging falls to me this episode, and I'm very torn. Both stories were very well done. But I think just because I like the idea of Raven University still exists and Russians still using ravens to
To
communicate.
educate themselves as chimney sweeps.
And now we have to assume that the Russian flag is a boat with a lightsaber sticking out of it.
That was the other thing I
And
was
I
getting
think
at.
at this trying time in our nation's history, it's our patriotic duty to make fun of Russia as much as possible.
I sort of, that's
But
also,
having
that's
a
my
flag with a
inclination.
boat with a lightsaber on it is cool, right? That's making Russia too
What
cool.
a fucking nerd country. I have to go with the alternate history.
Yeah.
So, listeners, before we leave, we do have a big announcement. We're doing a new show, a new live show coming up at Deer Pile. It's called Nighttime Tonight. It's a live late night show.
Yes, it's based in Denver, so if you aren't there, sorry.
I thought you were going to go
Skype your
suck
way
it.
in. Check
Yeah.
it out. FaceTime these guys.
Move
You
to
guys wanna have
Denver.
a
I'm
FaceTime
sure,
portion
I'm
with
sure
your
there's
comedy
people
show.
who won't give you shit for
Yeah,
that.
that's the easy answer. Just
My
move to Denver.
2017 resolution is to say "suck it" less. So
that's your...
The exact opposite of mine. I was trying to say suck it more, and I didn't
we'll
even say
balance
one.
out on the
Yeah,
whole.
exactly.
It's
Suck
like
it,
you
suck it,
erased my
suck it.
vote.
You have a quota. But that's coming up February 16th at 9 p.m. It's going to be an awesome show, so come check that out. Before we leave, Megan, you run 5280comedy.com, which is sort of the resource, the omnibus, like the hub of Denver comedy shows.
Yeah, just all the things basically I spend each morning just being like, why don't comics invite me to their shows? They know I got to repost it. Just tracking it down, and then I get messages like, why am I not on there? But you just send me what you, and it is a great resource whether you're a comic in Denver, you're a traveling comic, or mostly the idea is really to be able to send it out to audiences and get easy resource to have a good hub of all the shows going on, so you can check every night and be like, oh, here's 8 comedy shows going on in Denver, because that's where we're at.
Yep. And also you're on Twitter at Megan is a joke, and that's Megan with an H, which you can see in the show notes. Zach?
Yeah, Stage of Fools is still going. My other podcast with former guest on the show, Shannon Camp. I think the episode that'll be out around the time this one comes out is the Christmas episode, which they aired in mid to late July. So
What?
There you go.
What? Your timetables that's like a Russian calendar.
Don't blame me.
right there.
Blame E. It was not my fault.
Oh, well, that's a fucking great podcast. And as for me, I will be at Comedy Works January 24th.
Yeah.
And again, Nighttime Tonight, February 16th at Deer Pile. Come check that out.
Awesome.
Megan, thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys, for having me on.
For everyone here at The Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Have a good time.